Okay, Reverend Oliver, we're live.
We're live. Welcome everyone to this week's, Stopping the Violence Here in America. First and foremost, I want to just wish everyone a happy 4th of July. Why we're here is dealing with the situation of America and violence in America. And as we all know, that America is like the central point of the world arena. What happens here is focused. It affects the global arena. So what happens here can positively or negatively impact the world. And so we're dealing with this issue of violence in America. We originally started off with the whole notion of guns, but we realized that guns, as I always say, is an inanimate object. It takes people to pick it up and use it in a nefarious way. And so we want to thank and wish you a happy 4th of July and see if we can get America back on track, especially when dealing with this whole notion of violence in America, which seems to be escalating. But we have been fortunate to have excellent presenters, and we have another one to come on and share their hopes, strengths, and the way that she has contributed to the reduction of crime and the healing of our community. You can't not reduce crime unless you start a healing process or to go into the root cause of why people would harm another person, steal from another person, or whatever crime it may be. And so we're pleased to have a Chicago police officer. And as you know, we've had different law enforcement on board. We've had political leaders on board. We have our religious leaders on board. We have our community activists on board. They've come and shared some incredible insights. And I know we're excited to hear this particular person's insight, which is Dr. Barbara Bunville. Now, she is a Chicago police officer and psychological counselor and city council candidate, promotes strategy to stop crime and violence. And one of the other things I did not mention was the other component that contributes to violent behavior, which is mental health, and we need to deal with that more succinctly. But before we have her to come on, I would love just to share with you how she got where she is today. Of course, and I always read people's bios. I think it's important that we know who is addressing us and what they've been through and how they got to the point where they've been able to come and address us in such a positive manner. Dr. Barbara A. Bunville was born in Chicago, raised in Inglewood neighborhood, and because of the early challenges of her parents and her grandparents, Barbara and her brother and her brother were raised by their great-grandmother, Mattie Lipscomb, from Sugar Lot, Mississippi, amen, lovingly called Granny. Barbara is the second child of the 5 children of her mother, Teresa Bunville. Barbara has her brother Samuel Bunville and 3 sisters, Aretha Hughes, Ora Hughes, and Kimyana Hughes. Barbara attended Catholic school from early age in elementary, high school. She has been working most of her life. She had to work from sophomore to senior year to pay for her high school tuition, amen, because Granny Mattie could not afford it, and we understand. Barbara received some scholarships that allowed her to attend Roosevelt University, where she received a bachelor's in education and a master's degree in literacy. Barbara was motivated to help people, and that fueled Barbara's desire to get a master's degree in forensic psychology from the Chicago School of Professional Psychology. Barbara's drive toward excellence in leadership motivated her to attend the Argosy University, where she received a EDD doctorate degree in instructional leadership. Barbara, innate, I like that, innate heart is the reason she has spent central part of her career in public service, having served the citizens of Chicago for more than 23 years, working in numerous communities. In her constant effort to help improve the lives of others, Barbara has worked on countless volunteer projects within the United States and abroad, working in Jamaica with children in foster care, tutoring, one-on-one, providing supplies to the children, raising funds for their orphanages, coordinating community service and international projects for her sorority, Delta Sigma Theta sorority, right? Including projects in Ghana, Johannesburg, and several villages and cities in Africa, Canada, and Bermuda. In her role as an independent psychological counselor, Barbara delivers professional counseling and treatment with the goal of maximizing personal functioning for individuals ranging from adolescents to older adults. Barbara provides mobile crisis response to children and adults in the hospital, family, homes, and natural environments, conducting assessment, crisis management, treatment, and individual plans to improve her clients' well-being. Now, Dr. Bunville and I had a kind of a preview. We had a previous conversation, and one of the things that we did deal with was that mental health is a very strategic and very central component. One of the central components with lack of focus and attention to violence, and those violent behaviors may be categorized community by community or culture by culture or the mental health situation. So we want, without any further ado, to welcome Dr. Barbara Bunville. Welcome to our platform.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to share my experience with everyone. Only thing I want to correct is I ran for the Sixth Ward Alderperson. I did not win. I did run this last term. I was, I think, the third or fourth person out of 12 people. So I think I did a wonderful job putting out my message and going out there and putting myself out there. I don't feel bad. I actually feel very proud, and has led me to meet some wonderful people that's on here now. So I'm very happy.
Well, welcome.
And one of the things, thank you so much. One of the things that I did run on was the mental health. The mental health is something that we as a community, I can speak for African Americans, we do not take to heart. Because growing up, you growing up, I'm growing up, we was told you keep them secrets at home. You don't tell your business outside. And a lot of trauma is related to that because we had no one to talk to. Because if you said that you was depressed, or if you was this, then it was a problem. It's like, oh my goodness, you need to go somewhere and sit down. Let the Lord fix it. Okay, but I need some help right now. So that was my biggest thing. Running for Alderperson is we need mental health, because mental health is so important. It starts with the families, actually, because it's a generational thing. Because you have my grandmother, she didn't believe in therapy. She thought she was crazy. And then here I come, and everybody didn't have the biggest upbringing. Like I said, I lived in Inglewood, so you can imagine how that was. But I had my grandmother, who was a God-fearing woman, who put values inside of me to say that you can't do this. But I still have my own struggles. And we have youth now, they brought up into an organization or a family where all they do is see trauma, shootings and stealings and drug sellings, and they see all of this and they have no way out. And so this perpetuates the whole criminal background of everything. They don't know how to do conflict resolution. They feel that conflict resolution is picking up a gun and shooting someone, or picking up or beating somebody down or robbing someone, because they don't know how to deal with all the trauma that they have faced growing up in different communities. Also, it leads to incarceration. When the governor shut down the mental health programs in Illinois, it put a light on mental health, because now the people that was getting help is now outside doing all these things. And then they send them to jail, where the people there are not qualified to handle mental health personnel that's in their jail, which is very sad. Because now you have somebody in jail that probably didn't do anything, and this person might be schizophrenic, or they might have some bipolar disorder, and you put them in jail instead of getting them help. So that is a big problem right now. Now, I have to agree with Dr. Oliver. Guns don't kill people, people kill people. Because the gun is just a gun until you pick it up and actually do something with it. And you have a lot of people, they are off their meds, they bipolar, they schizophrenic, and they are getting guns off the street. So of course, somebody do something to them, what they do, shoot them. So it has to be more money put into mental health. I'm not saying that's the all of all, but that is a big part of it. Now I understand, people, there's some evil people out there. This is evil people in general. But then you also look at the side where, since I was raised I was raised Catholic, and of course the spiritual aspect comes into it, but everybody don't want to go to church. We can't make everybody go to church. And then some of the people in church, they're having issues as well, because maybe something is going on in their family. They do not know how to do conflict resolution, or they're evil and mean. So they're there listening and receiving the word of Papa, but they don't know how to handle everything else that's going on. Maybe they lost their job, or they lost their child in childbirth, or their child got killed by a random bullet. That is trauma. And they don't have anybody there to help them. As Reverend Dr. Oliver had announced, I do crisis work. I work with ADS McKinley, and I go out to these calls for crisis. And I have to go to the hospitals or go to someone's home and try to figure out what is really going on today. How do we help this person in this crisis? They want to kill themselves because they have this fear of hopelessness, or they just fear society as a whole. And then I have to come in and try to figure out, what do this person need right now at this moment? And I have to think on my feet. Okay, they need this. And then if it's a child, it's even harder, because the parent does not follow up or follow through on the required treatment for the child. So if they just want to put them in the hospital, like Hargrove or anything like that, you just can't put them there. We need some aftercare as well. Or sometimes they won't even take them to the hospital. They just leave them at home, or they won't call, or they'll say don't come at all. So people need to be educated. That's one thing. Be educated in how mental health affect everyone.
Thank you. I'll ask some other questions to your presentation and all that you have done. What came to my mind is a few things that I would ask you to address, but I would like to, actually, when I was in college, that was my major, was psychology. And prior to going to school, I had a best friend, Susan Cognac. And she knew that I was going to go into college. She was a couple of years, or a year ahead of me, 2 years ahead of me. And she knew I wanted to go to be a psych major. So she sent me a book to kind of prep me. And it was a book called Not Made of Wood. And the premise of the book was about schizophrenia, and how schizophrenia is handled. And one of the major theme of the book and moral of the book was something I think that is indicative of what is missing within the community, as you had said, you incarcerate them. Our last speaker said incarceration, I can't remember exactly, but actually incarceration does not heal the mental health situation. We have to deal with it appropriately. And so another thing is the communities that you had shared with us that a lot of these young people are coming out of is not in conducive, if you will, for dealing with the problem that they are facing. So it's all pent up and then it explodes into the violent behavior. And lastly, prior to this, I used to do a webinar on mental health in the African-American community because we sweep it under the carpet. You're right. Exactly my word. We sweep it under the carpet, but that stuff's still under that carpet because we have never been able to, deal with our, that it was a misnomer of superstition. I don't know, within our community that you just don't, you don't tell your business, you keep it in the house, and all you need is the Lord. I understand those are words that we all heard in our community. But lastly, according to this book, and I want to address that as well, is that the guy decided to stop shock therapy and, during those days for schizophrenia. And what he did was invested his whole heart into this person. This person was a severe schizophrenic. But when the guy invested in him, this particular person emerged and became, for a while, a viable citizen out in the community. And the core component of that investment was love. He showed him some love, really deep love. And that became a healing point. And that always stuck with me. When I read that book, I was 18, 17 years old. It always stuck with me. And that's what I think when we're in different communities, raised in different communities, that component of love is not there always. We're faced with trying to survive, which also behaviors you were indicating, certain behaviors become the norm. Conflict resolution, meaning, no, I know how to resolve this, take him out. You know what I mean? So those kind of things. So ask you in your venture and in your course through this, the things that I just shared, how do you see that being a very significant component of the healing process within, our communities? And I just wanted to, I know we're saying about African-American community, but there's a variety of different communities and there are a variety of different triggers according to communities. We're just specifically dealing with that community.
Oh, yes. Now, like you said, we have to start accepting that and not be in denial of your child might need help. And I hear that a lot when I have certain clients and I ask them, okay, how long has this been going on? And they would tell me, oh, this has been going on since he was 3 or 4 or 5, but I just ignored it. So that's what education needs to come in. We can't say the things that little Johnny and little Sally, or whoever is doing is okay. It's okay. You want to laugh at what they're doing and not actually look at the whole picture and get this person help before it get out of hand. Because when this person turns 15, 14, 16, and they're probably bigger than you, now they want to start fighting and going out doing what they want to do. So sometimes we have to start with the family as a whole. We need family therapy. We need group therapy. Because if you start with the family and with the group, everybody can heal around the same time. Because you will know the triggers, you will know not how to poke the bear, in a sense, if I could say that like that. You know how to talk better because people are not listening, because listening is a skill. People don't want to listen, they want to talk. And if you don't listen, you're not really paying attention to what the person is telling you that they need help with when they're going through a crisis.
Yeah, thank you. Again, there's some other statements that are being made that I'd like you to address. And it's family healing. One of the things that you share was a generational problem. And we have to nip it in the bud from that standpoint. Thank you for sharing that. We have Kevin Thompson, even he can come on if he likes to share his point, but he did say, thank you for your presentation. I have 2 children who are police officers here in California. They tell me that the worst calls from them are domestic disputes and numbers of disturbed and distressed families in crisis at crisis levels and it's getting worse. What can you do to improve our families? Kevin, why don't you come on? Reverend Thompson.
Okay, hello everyone.
Hi.
Thank you, Barbara, for your great service, and thank you for your presentation. Yeah, my 2 children are policemen, one here in San Francisco Bay Area and one in Sacramento. And as I said, the most difficult calls for them are domestic disputes, because there's so much emotion involved. There's so much children abuse and if not physical abuse, trauma abuse. And it seems to me like working more on family improvement, family, preparation for marriage and support of marriage and family would go a long way to helping solve a lot of crime problems. And people who are unhappy in their families, generally speaking, take it out on somebody. And yeah, as we know, a good family is a good foundation for a good society.
Reverend Thompson.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, I said that is correct, because that's where the children learn how to be an adult sometimes, because they see the mother and the dad having issues of verbal altercations as well as physical altercations. And then I step in, this is a real case that I was going through. I have to step in, and now they go into court because the child is in distress because she saw the daddy beat the mother. And I'm glad that the mom did bring her to therapy, but I don't think she would have done it as quickly if the courts had not got involved. And then now your child is going to grow up thinking that it's okay for a man to hit you because the mom didn't lead the situation or get help for her daughter and her son, but it affected the daughter more.
Watching, sometimes they're not showing any emotions, but internally they are completely traumatized. Thank you very much. Thank you, Reverend Thompson. And Bill Stoner, discussing the issue, he said, thank you again, discussing issues that are so crucial, but too often dismissed. Could you explain your proposals for citywide safety teams in this particular area?
Oh, that's for me?
Yeah, to you.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, of course. Well, I know here in Chicago, they are actually, I don't know if it's a prototype or a pilot, that they have officers or this group of people, clinicians, that actually go out, like if a crisis call comes out, they actually go with the clinician to the house. So I know that they're working on that. It's only in certain areas, though. It's not citywide as of yet. Because most of the clinicians, when they go inside the house, they don't know what they're walking into. So since they don't know what they're walking into, because I used to be out there and it's 1, 2, or 3 o'clock in the morning and you go into somebody's house in a very seedy type neighborhood, they might pull out a gun and shoot you. So now they're trying to have the police officers go with. So if they need immediate hospitalization, they can actually take them where they need to go. So I don't know when it's going to go citywide, but I know they're working on it.
Very much.
Could I ask you a
Any other
question?
question? Yeah, go right ahead, Reverend Stoner.
Thank you, Dr. Munville. Thank you very much for opening up such a very crucial set of issues for us. I'm really interested to find out about these safety teams, because does the city give training to them, or are they employees or representatives of the social services department, or do they have professional training?
Now, I know that they do have one person, he is over the whole the whole safety thing, but I do not know the ins and outs of it as much because it's only in certain areas. So it hasn't come to my area because I have to say, for one, I'm off the street right now, and I actually work in the ATC area. I work with the detectives on solving homicides. So I really don't, that I can't answer right now, but I can get the answer for you. Because I don't want to say something and it's false.
Okay, well, may I just, this is Dr. Pritchett. I'd just
Yes.
like to interject something, and maybe Dr. Bensel could expound on that. What is that program within the district, what they call them DOC,
Okay.
where they have officers, they've been trained by the crisis intervention team and the DOC, for an example, as I'm understanding, if there is a domestic violence situation in the home, after the basic and initial investigation is done, the DOC officer goes out to ask if the wife or mother or woman of the home understood the tenets of going to court, getting a court order for domestic violence, order of protection, and direct them to social services. At least that's what I thought. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yes, then now they do have the DOCs actually work inside the stations. They have them all over. They actually have them in the detective division as well. They do a lot of community service work to help people that are in need. So that I do know, but I don't think they are the ones that go out with the clinicians. So they do two separate things.
Thank you. I have a question for you myself. Do you have any working in, now that you're working in forensics, I know that there's a lot of work and insights that you come across, but as you know, two questions. One, what really you can explain to us yourself, not your bio, that really motivated you to go into the field of psychology, thus going into mental health and then dealing with your community? And then second, do you have any best practices or so, you know, something that really happened where you see that the work that you've done or doing or the agency that you're serving out of has really turned some people around and had some best practices or best results?
Okay, the first one, what made me go into psychology? I think what really made me, I wanted to know what made people tick. I wanted to know what's in their mind. How do they operate? It was a personal thing. It was totally personal, but I wanted to know because I'm nosy and I like to help. So I wanted to know what made them tick. So I went into it in that aspect. Now, have I seen people change that I dealt with? Yes, I have. Since I tell my clients, therapy is not a race, it's a marathon. It's not going to, you talk to me for a month, oh, I'm healed. No, it doesn't work like that. But most people think that. It doesn't work that way. So I had one client, because I can tell you the story, but I just can't share names. I had one client, this person was in high school, and she was very timid, and she was very sexual, over-sexual, very over-sexual. But the way that she would say everybody was after her, nobody was after her. And so by talking to her, of course, we have to build trust, because you have to build trust with that person. It may take 6 months to build trust because they don't know you. They don't know if you're going to go tell their parents. They don't know if you really who you say you are you genuine. So it takes time. But I did get her to calm down sexually, because I don't have control over her body like that or her mind like that. Then also she started to open up to people and started to hang out with people because she had a social anxiety that she didn't want to hang out with anyone. So I did do that. It might be like, oh, that's nothing, but it's like little steps because she started opening up and talking to people. And when it comes to the criminal aspect of it, I did at the Juvenile Detention Center, we did a 6-week program with some juveniles that was on probation. And I know that one of them actually turned his little life around to a certain degree. All you can do is hope that they do something, but he didn't get any more trouble. So it's like little things like that, because you have to show them you can do other things. If you put them in situations, and we did we did do conflict resolution. We gave them a picture of like, okay, this could be your life like this. You got guns and blood and drugs and everything, or this can be you over here. Which one look attractive? If you get them one-on-one, because if they're in a group, of course, that peer pressure kicks in. And they don't want to be, oh my goodness, I'm talking to this lady and I want to be that square or that nerd like me. But they don't want to have their friends see them like that. So getting them one-on-one, you can get them. But you have to be consistent. And then that's when the parents come in. They'll come for like a month and then they'll drop off. Or they feel that, oh, I don't think nothing is happening, but they're right there in the room and I can't really do what I want to do because everything is confidential. And then you have these helicopter moms or dads who want to hear everything that I'm saying to them. And that's not how therapy works.
Yeah, I think one of the key operative words that you just used that is lacking within a lot of people who schizophrenia thing was consistency. And then contradictions. They are faced with contradictions within the family, within the society, that affects them so drastically and traumatically. I would like to ask Dr. Madeline Alexander to come and share with us. She also worked within the penal institutions as well. So she has that experience, and I'm quite sure she has some with mental health and violence. Welcome, Dr. Alexander. Yeah.
Thank you. Greetings, Dr. Alexander. Dr. Alexander, Dr. Oliver, and greetings, Dr. Bunzville. I'm so grateful for your position and the work that you have done, and the intentionality of you reaching out and speaking on mental health, because as you said before, it's not something that's it's not something that really happens in our community. And you're right. We were raised in the church where everything that went on in the house, it kind of stayed in the house. And even to the degree now that you have people that are in church and still suffer in silence because they're relying on their faith. And in that process of relying on that faith, a lot of times things are hidden. But the word tells us to confess as we confess our sins to one another. So in that full process, if you can confess a sin to someone else, you can easily confess your problem to someone else, pray together, but yet get the help that you need. Mental health, the stigma of mental health is what keeps a majority of people away from getting the help that they need. So they suffer in silence rather than going to the doctor for a checkup on their mind, as well as their heart or their body or any other ailment that they might have. Sometimes I wish mental health was like a toothache, because when you have a toothache, you're definitely going to go to the dentist. But because mental health affects us differently, we handle it differently and look for self-resolve. And a lot of things with the kids that we have now that's on the street, they are self-medicating, and that self-medication causes them to become disillusioned. How do we, what I would like to know, do you have any suggestions of how to curtail or even remove the stigma of mental health? Because I think people just understand it's a chemical imbalance of the brain. And it doesn't mean that you're crazy. You could have, you could be perfectly sane in what society calls normal and have a psychotic episode. That doesn't mean that you're crazy. It just means that you had a moment. And to look at, you know, to look at depression and being bipolar, being schizophrenic, but even to have anxiety, you know, but how do, and the way I reach out to people, I have a pretty high vibration, so I can kind of tell when something's wrong with when a person's not settled. I'll put it that way. And in that process, during conversation, I'm able to, you know, talk about some different things to allow a person to tell their true feelings or express their emotions. And that's another thing that has happened in society is society has become numb because you don't want to be emotional. If you're a female, then you're just emotional. And if you're a man, you're something else if you express your emotions. But in this tidal wave that we're in, we're going to have to figure out a way to not only deal with our emotions, but teach our children that it's okay to express their emotions without hurting someone else, because that trigger happens just like that. And just as well as they can pick up a gun or a knife or become offensive, if we have the opportunity to teach them how to work through that emotional state, then I think we'll be in a better place. I've watched grown men in prison system behind closed doors collapse in my arms from having an emotional breakdown, but have to keep up that facade once they go outside, you know, those cell doors. So we're living in a time where people are angry, people are hurting, people are becoming numb, because we used to hear about, you know, an argument, a shooting, a fist fight, a bar brawl or something like that, and it would make you clench your pearls. But now we're hearing about mass shootings, and we're hearing about them almost every day, and it's almost like it's expected, where the community is becoming numb, as long as it's not my family or as long as it's not my child. And I think we have to move outside of that, because even in that it's like stress. You can be in a stressful environment, have a perfectly good day, but when you leave, you're tensed. So everything that's going on, it's not just happening and affecting the family that's involved, it's affecting all of us, whether we realize it or not. And one day it's going to show up somewhere, whether it's your physical health, whether it's your mental health, or whether it's your spiritual blockage. It's going to show up because of the atmosphere that we're living in, the environments that we're living in. We might be safe and at peace in our homes, but when you go outside of your home, how do you handle yourself? The way you handle yourself will give you signals of the stressors that you're taking on that you're not physically aware of. And I could go on and talk for hours, but I like to open up the line for, you know, other people to share their questions or to share their thoughts. But so my question to you is, with mental health, how do we change the stigma?
Now, this is how I do it. I'm going to do it one person at a time. I can only reach one person at a time. But when I have my clients, I tell them, a good therapist, if you're a good therapist, you have a therapist also. Because I can't take all of your stuff in and not give it out, because that's too much on my shoulders. And I said, and it's okay to have a therapist. I let them know, why are you here? In a nice way. And I said, it's okay to talk to somebody, because sometimes you cannot talk to your family because they don't hear you. They're not listening because they're already prejudging you. But this is a safe space. Men, women, grown, babies, it doesn't matter. If you need to cry, it's quite all right. Your feelings are your feelings and no one can take it away from you. And it's okay. So I tell them, yes, I have a therapist. Yes, I've been in therapy for a long time and I'm an advocate for therapy.
Thank you. And that's what I always say. Even the doctor need a doctor. We talk about a medical
Exactly.
doctor. A medical doctor needs to see another doctor if he has
Yeah.
some type of ailment. So you're absolutely right. And I think even in looking in our families, we don't want to look at it as a mental health issue. But if your family member begins to withdraw, something is happening. But are you aware enough to see the pattern or the change in their behavior or their everyday activities? That doesn't mean that they're crazy, but it might mean that they need to talk to somebody. So when we talk about mental health, it can be deep, and we know how deep it can get. However, to acknowledge it, to be aware of it, and to ask yourself, what are you doing for yourself mentally? The guy that works out, he goes to the gym, the bodybuilder, he goes to the gym every day. She goes to the gym every day to work out her body. But how are we working out our minds? Are we taking that time to have that moment of peace? Are we taking that time to meditate, to prayer? And when we pray, are we staying there long enough, not only to give our laundry list to God, but are we listening for answers to what we're actually laying before him? So absolutely. And we can only reach one person at a time. But I respect and appreciate the fact that you said you have a therapist, because that's key. I always say, listen, I can help you with your problem and situation, but I cannot carry your problem and situation because I wasn't built for that. Yes, I take it to the Lord in prayer. Yes, there has to be other avenues as a release, because we're not built to take on that full burden of other people. So I'm glad to hear of your self-care as well.
Yes. Oh, thank you. And another thing that I do as well, when I'm talking to them, I give them my motto. And my motto came from my first therapist who passed away. And whatever they're going through, I said, look, it's okay to have, take a moment. It's okay to be in that moment. It's one moment, an hour, a minute, a second. It might take you that long to get out of that moment, but think about that. That is my motto that I share for my clients, that someone shared with me. And I appreciate it, because it might take just a moment. Just give me a minute. Give me a minute.
Yeah.
Let me get myself together.
Yeah. And that's the process and the key to mindfulness. When you're operating in mindfulness, you're dealing with that situation that you're in at that particular time. And you're being mindful and conscious of what's transitioning in that moment. You're not thinking about what you're going to do afterwards. You're not thinking about what happened before, but you're in that present moment. And I think that in itself, being a part of conflict resolution, to be mindful and present in where you are and what's happening around you at that particular time. A couple of weeks ago, one of the gentlemen was on and was speaking, and he was talking about, matter of fact, last week, I think it was Reverend Oliver, when the guy said you can incarcerate, when you put a person in jail with a mental health situation, you, at that particular time, you're incarcerating the problem. And the problem really can't be incarcerated. You can lock a person up, but if you're not given, and they have mental health issues, if you're not treating them for that mental health issue, when you release them, you still release the problem. And chances are the problem is continually even while they're being locked up and they go into that same environment, then it has even grown, you know, especially when you're talking about retaliation and different things like that. A couple weeks ago, I saw the commercial, and they were saying that 1 out of 5 children have mental health problems. So they were, the commercial was in reference to the Children's Hospital. But in my mind, I thought about, if you know 1 in every 5 children have mental health problems, and you know this by the time they turn 5 years old, why isn't mental health in the school system doing screenings on kindergartners to identify any type of problem that they could share with the parent and partner with the parent to bring that child into a place to have coping skills, to have the tools that they need to adjust to the society that they have to go into. We know that the family is the primary educational institution. But if the parents aren't there, or the parents aren't aware, I heard what you said, you know, you have these little children that they do things, you know, that is a little strange, but you don't correct them. Well, if we entertain small demons, we're going to end up entertaining adult demons. So I agree with you that those behaviors have to be dealt with. So do we do a get well seminar to start with the parents, that they can start looking at their children from a different perspective? As yourself, I work with Healthy Families of America with the Division of Public Health in Delaware. I went into a lot of homes, I saw a lot of things. But what I realized, in the younger children, they are a lot easier to redirect when they're younger than they are when they get older. Because by the time they get older, into their teens, they've already established these behaviors.
Yes,
So again, I thank you for coming on and sharing with us.
yeah, thank you so much.
You're muted, man. You're muted.
Oh, thank you, Doc. I'm talking to myself. I want to thank you, Dr. Madeline, for your words and the depth of conversation that went on between you two, because they were very pertinent. Also, Dr. Reverend Franklin had something he shared, which I think it's in conjunction with what Dr. Madeline just said in reference to what kind of seminars that we should put, the family seminars, to begin to address this problem. Before I go there, I would just like to say, again, we talked about family, and what I read an article with Michael Vick, who was incarcerated because he engaged into this illegal dog fighting. But he made a statement that went viral, and he said that from when I was, for what I was doing, and in the process of what I was doing, and after I was doing, I had no one to pull up on me and said, son, this is not the way to go. Maybe if I had someone to pull up on me and to help guide me, maybe I would not have lost these wonderful years that I've lost in the prison system. But I heard the family again. I heard the father figures again coming out of those words. If they just read it yesterday, saying that that's what was missing. The component of the family structure is so important, and those fathers are so important to redirect, as Dr. Madeline said, our children, even in a late age, but it's either a young age, even late age. Maybe if we try hard enough, we can redirect them for a moment, or arrest the situation that will cause them to being in a state of regret, like he has shared yesterday. But going to what Dr. Madeline did say, that we should put on this, but according to what you said the governor cut off mental health programs.
Mhm.
Can you, Dr. Franklin, Reverend Franklin wanted to know what was the cause and what stemmed this on?
I don't know why he cut the programs and shut down the many facilities. It could be a money thing, who knows? I don't know what politicians do and why they do it, but I know that in the end, we suffer from it. Now, they do have satellites, like, because I work for two mental health entities. So it's there, but they don't have a place where, like, you have the people that's on drugs or alcohol and they go get their methadone. We don't have that for mental health. Maybe they need medication to, like, if they bipolar or schizophrenia, maybe they need some medication to level them out, but where are they supposed to go? I mean, you can go, some of them don't have primary care doctors. Some of them are on that Cook County care thing, and that's through public health. But what are they supposed to go to get this every day? Because I deal with it with my clients. They have to wait like months to get medication. And then once they off it for a long period of time, it takes a month for this stuff to get back into their system to even them out. But if they had clinics that set up to help mental health clients, then they can go to this facility and get mental health, get the medicine, they have doctors, they have everything that's there to help them.
Yeah, you're right. So what Reverend Franklin was sharing was why, and like she said, you couldn't answer the question, but I think that should be a very pertinent question that the community and activists should ask the governor why, when the stats and statistics are showing, as you had shared earlier, that mental health plays a really critical role in a lot of violence that are occurring in our different communities. So that's really needs to be addressed as well. We have a few moments. Anyone else would like to come on and share or open up or ask Dr. Bunville her any questions? The floor is open.
Dr. Alder, this is Dr. Pritchett. I would like to bring to the attention of there has been a wide-eyed opening for suicide prevention here. We have gone through the Illinois Mental Health Association and have given suicide prevention classes for free. They're certified classes at our Fraternal Order of Police Officers. Dr. Bunville, I believe you took that class. I have taken the class every 3 years for my certification. In addition, here, Dr. Weston and Pastor Hero found it such an interesting dynamic that they introduced it to their churches to bring ministers in, thinking that who comprises the congregation, and that is people in the community. So if you bring the community in and they get a better feel for what the mental illness is, because there are two components. One is mental illness first aid, and the other one is suicide prevention. I think that President Biden, he came up with a federal investigation and brought this thing of mental illness to the forefront, because across the country, there was an unprecedented amount of people in law enforcement that were committing suicide.
Yes.
So that will let you know that there are some stressors involved, even on professional levels, whether it's law enforcement, clergy, communities. So I think that there should be a greater thrust of awareness of this disease.
Yes, I agree. Thank you. That's so correct. And that's another area that we didn't share in this particular segment was the suicide rate. I'm quite sure that you have some particular statistics of you already know that there is a high level of suicide rates in the police department. I was reading also in our little communities, different communities of young people at a very young age. Have anything you can share with us about that, Dr. Bunville?
Yes, suicide is very high in the police department because of the stress and the trauma that we actually see on a day-to-day basis. And people don't think that, it doesn't affect us. It does affect us greatly. And then you have your family that plays a part of it as well, and that adds on to it. And then when you think about the young children, because most of the time when I hospitalize a young child, they're suicidal. And they can tell you what they're going to do to kill themselves. And yeah, they know it's there. And people think that children do not have stress, but they do. They get bullied at school. I mean, they see stuff at home. They probably don't eat well. It's a lot, but we just don't know, because the outside, you look at the home, it's all nice and clean and pristine. But once you go inside there, it's totally different. So they have their own issues. So it's a big thing. And there are things you can that you can notice that if you go to this class, which is a wonderful class, that you can actually okay, this person is acting a little strange now. Maybe I need to go talk to them, pull them to the side. Maybe they need a hug. Maybe, they need a smile. You never know what's going on with somebody every day. So that's why I try to always do a smile and say, you need a hug? Because you never know.
Yeah, you never know. I think thank you so much, Dr. Bunville, for your presentation and bringing again the awareness of mental health. And it's something that we don't discuss in all communities that much, but it is an essential part when we're dealing with the violence in America and on the world arena. If people have pent up stuff inside of them, they might have some momentary lapse that will revert into some drastic violent behavior. This is what I think we need to really look at even more closer. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing that with us. And we look forward to working with you as well. But as we have in our closing, actually, I didn't know, but I realized that our international president and national president of UPF, which is one of the sponsors who sponsored this this weekly webinar dealing with violence in America, is Reverend Michael Jenkins, and also Rachel Jenkins, his wife, are here. So I'd like to ask them to share a few words in our closing. How are you? Welcome,
Wonderful.
Dr. Jenkins and Ms. Jenkins.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Oliver, for this wonderful effort, and especially Evangelist Dr. Rita Pritchett has put us all together. And we're so honored to see Officer Barbara Bunville again. We were so blessed to have her as one of the honorees for the Law Enforcement Women in Chicago. And we're so grateful for your leadership, Barbara. And thank you, Evangelist Dr. Pritchett. You put this whole movement together to back the blue and to help our law enforcement heroes. Thank you. Thank you, Barbara. God bless you. Thank you, Reverend Oliver, for doing this.
Yeah, thank you. Go ahead, Barbara. Dr. Bunville.
Nice seeing you again.
Yes, Ambassador Bunville. She's an ambassador for peace for the United Nations.
God bless.
That's wonderful, wonderful. I can see Dr. Jenkins, she's one of the ones who are in that picture that you would show us.
Yes, yes.
Oh my God, I didn't realize that you were one of them. We already know you. You know, we've seen you
We
so much
already know you.
times.
Well,
Dr. Jenkins proudly promotes your accomplishments and the accomplishments or the heart of the you know, the honors that were given to persons like yourself, and you were there. So, you know, I really didn't realize that you were one of the persons that were honored to have seen you. God bless you.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming
Thank
on.
you.
I humbly accept everything. I'm so humble about everything. I thank you so very much.
Yeah.
God bless you.
Thank you,
And-
Dr. Madeline. Thank
Yeah, thank you so much. And as we
Ah.
want to go and close and thank Dr. Bunville for, even when we read your bio, we realize that it wasn't easy for you, but you rose to the occasion to be in the position that you are, to be not a victim, but a victor that is helping others who are victims to become victors. We love you. Thank you so much for coming on. And we look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you, Dr. Pritchett. Thank you so much for
Thank you so much.
introducing us to Dr. Bunville. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Jenkins and Mrs. Jenkins for coming on.
Thanks.
Okay,
All
God
right,
bless
have a
you.
great afternoon. God bless everyone.
Yes,
Bless
Yeah.
you.
Peace and
Thank you.
blessings. Have a
Thank
beautiful,
you.
a wonderful week.
Thank you, Dr. Alexander, for always your great words. Dr. Franklin, we didn't hear from
God
you, but we did discuss why that governor did not keep the mental health issue. Thank you.
The current one, this is before.
Yeah,
let's-
and those mental health places were not only shut down in Chicago, they've been closed throughout the states.
Yeah, not the current governor. No.
Yeah.
I want to
Yeah.
say, oh, you said the current governor. No. This is the
So
one
it's-
before him.
The one before him,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Make that
Yeah, and
clear.
it's happening. It's happening from state to state. They've closed some down here in Indiana. They closed them down in Delaware. So this is what we are exposed to on our streets.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Hey, great.
And you do see it. You
Oh,
see
yes,
it, people
yes.
talking to themselves and everything else. Just a phenomenal. But thank you again,
God bless.
Thank you for having me.
Dr. Bunville. We look
Thank you.
forward to working with you.
Oh, most definitely.
Beautiful.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Nadia.
Thank you.
And
Thank you, everybody.
Behind the
Thanks. God
scenes
bless.
persons, LJ, EJ, I mean,
Thank
Welcome,
you,
welcome.
Dr.
Thank you, Dr.
Alexander.
Bunville.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Reverend Sagisaka. Bye. Dr. Pritchett, God bless you.
Hey, Reverend Hero. Thank you, Chicago family.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
God was in the house.
See you next week.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
God bless.